Now you've got the hang of moving things around in edit mode, it's time to master manipulating objects. Just as well, because Connie's friend Cuthbert fell asleep in the Dreamiverse and got stranded. Yes, he's a cube with legs. Connie didn't choose her friends. I did. So, we need to fix these platforms if she's going to reach the flag and get to Cuthbert. Before we start, you can switch to play mode to see how a player would experience this scene. You'll always need to test things out in play mode while dream shaping, so it's a good habit to get into. Press the options button, then select play mode with X. Its icon looks like a controller. Once you're in play mode, take control of Connie with R2, and we'll see how far she can go. Start by jumping over to the first platform. Oh dear. Looks like it's too far for Connie. Move that first platform closer. To do that, head back into edit mode. So, open the options menu and select the button with the pencil icon. Once you're in edit mode, move on to the next step. We have to do something about these platforms if Connie's going to reach the other side. First, let's get a good look at them. Move your view side on to Connie and the first pink platform. Don't forget, you can hold L1 while using the left stick to strafe up and down. See the dotted outlines? That's where the platforms should be. So let's put them in place with the Move tool. The Imp has this equipped by default. To move things, hover the tip of your Imp over them and press and hold R2. Move it where you want it and release R2. Try it now with the first movable platform. Grab it with R2, slide it over so it lines up with the pink outlines, and release R2. You can get a slower, more precise movement if you hold R2 softly. Use the left stick to move the platform backwards, forwards, left and right. And if you need to try again, just undo your action by pressing the left directional button. You may have noticed that objects move more freely here in edit mode than in the home space. That's because their auto guide gadgets are disabled by default in the guides menu. I'll explain more about this in another tutorial, but for now, you don't need to worry about it. It just means you have more freedom to dream shape. When the platform is in the right spot, you're ready for the next step. Now that the first platform's in position, let's test it out. Open the options menu and select play mode with X. Connie's on the starting platform, ready for another try. Take control of her with R2 and see if she can jump over the gap now. Hope she made it this time. If not, you can always go back and edit things again. In fact, let's try doing that now and see what happens. Select Edit Mode from the Options menu. Look at that. Connie isn't in her starting place anymore. That's because time passes when you're in play mode. And the scene doesn't rewind automatically when you return to edit mode. Instead, things will be frozen in the state you left them when you were playing. Always keep this in mind when switching modes. But you can easily rewind things. Just press L3 by clicking in the left stick on your controller. Now time's rewound back to the beginning. Doing this won't reset any changes you made in edit mode. See? Connie is back to her starting position, but the platform remains where you left it. Try to get into the habit of rewinding time after you play scenes. That way, you'll avoid any problems. There are times when it's useful to leave things as they are after playing, but when in doubt, rewind. Okay, if your platform's in the right place and you've had a successful test run with Connie, you can move on to the next step. Let's sort out the next platform now. It's the middle one that's lying on its side. Before you can match it up with the outline, you'll need to stand it upright. So you'll have to rotate it first. You can rotate objects in edit mode by grabbing them with L2. That's right, we won't be using R2 this time. When you grab things with L2, you can rotate them in place, instead of moving them around the scene. Give it a go now. Hover over the fallen platform, then press and hold L2. Now you can rotate it by tilting your controller. This is a great way of making smaller adjustments. You can also rotate it fully by using the left and right sticks while holding L2. The platform will rotate in different directions depending on how you push the sticks. The motion sensor function is disabled when you do this, so you don't have to worry about tilting your controller. If you want to reactivate the motion sensor function, just let go of the shape and grab it again with L2. Bear in mind that your IMP's tip is at the center point of the rotation, so you can grab the platform at different points and see how it affects the rotation. All that rotating has made the platform a bit wonky. So let's undo all that with the left directional button and start again. Grab and hold L2 over the platform and try to rotate it into a vertical position. Once you have it more or less upright, you can let go of L2. This time, grab the platform with R2 so you can move it into the matching blue outline. Remember,
are you making the horse
R2
falling
more
level?
softly will let you move the platform with more precision. And if you're feeling really adventurous, you can try rotating it with the touchpad too. That's quite a lot of buttons to remember, isn't it? Well, if you ever forget what to press, with X. They'll show you what buttons you can use in any situation. Practice rotating things with L2 until you're comfortable. Then move on to the next step.
Oh, I've just been talking to you. I keep doing this. I keep talking to people with my mic up. How you doing, Miss Lane? I knew that was you. I didn't really have to check. But no, that's not what I'm doing. There will be no horse falling here.
Hand, like this platform, it might end up a little wonky.
Wonky, yeah, mine's a bit wonky.
There's a really simple way of fixing that. You can realign objects by grabbing them with L2 or R2 and then pressing triangle. This will snap whatever shape you're grabbing to the nearest right angle. Make sure you're grabbing an object before you press triangle though, or you might end up deleting it. If you do delete something by accident, remember you can undo your mistake by pressing the left directional button. Once you're happy with the position and alignment of the middle platform, you should switch over to play mode and test it out. So, select the controller icon in the options menu.
Good.
And possess Connie to see how far she can get.
She can get all the way.
Are you making a
You're
level?
almost there now. Just switch back to
No, I'm
edit mode
just going
and
through the
switch that forward.
tutorials. I've already been through them once, but I just want to go through them again
Remember to rewind time with L3.
before I create anything.
Now we can go on to the next step. Now the only thing separating Connie from Cuthbert is the final platform. Oh, it looks a bit small compared to the others. I'm not sure Connie will be able to use it, no matter how much you rotate it.
We can make it bigger.
Let's learn how to make objects bigger, or as we dream shapers say, scale them up.
Let's scale it up, baby.
Scale objects up or down by using the up and down directional buttons. Hover over the final platform now, and hold the up directional button to make it bigger. The square on the floor tells you what size the platform's base needs to be. It's also a good idea to get the top of the platform level with all the others. Remember
Okay, I'm going to play some more Unravel in a min.
Okie dokie.
Well, here its position determines
Enjoy.
where the object scales from. Try hovering
I
over
forgot
the
to check that
platform
out.
in
I'll have to check it
different
out.
places
I forgot.
and see how that affects the scaling. And if it gets too tall, you can just hold the down directional button to shrink it. Now that you know how to move, rotate and scale things, you should be able to get the final platform into its matching frame at the right height.
It's really good, very arty.
When everything is where it should be, go into play mode and see if Connie can reach the flag.
Yeah, I'll definitely check it out. You play a ball of wool, right? Like a little wool puppet?
Once Connie reaches the flag, head into edit mode again and go to the next step.
I made it, Cuthbert. Stop crying now, mate. Stop crying, Cuthbert. Cuthbert.
This character reminds of Little Nightmares.
Connie and Cuthbert have been reunited.
The one in
Now
Unraveled.
they need to find a way out before Cuthbert falls asleep again. So let's learn how to find a door in the Dreamiverse. Go to the
The cone one, I mean.
which is the
Oh,
row of
okay.
buttons at the top of the screen. The assembly menu disappears when you're
Know
busy
your
working
character
on a
in
scene
this.
to make sure it doesn't get in the way. So if you can't see it, just press square to open it.
It reminds me of Whizbit.
Here you'll find all the assembly tools, modes, and gadgets.
Whizbit
If
was a
you ever
TV show
wonder
from
what
the
a button
90s.
does, just hover over it for a few seconds to see more info.
With a little
This
cone-shaped
menu
wizard.
is also where the search button lives. It's the one with the magnifying glass. Select it now with X.
Never seen it.
Nah, it's a
The
bit
search
before your
button
time, I
takes
think.
you to the Dreamiverse, where you'll find all the things created by dreamers from around the world. But for this tutorial, I've selected a collection of elements that you can use in this scene. Let's see if we can find a door in the Start Dreaming collection. Select it with X. Have a look around. What elements do we have here in the collection? Ah, there it is. A door. Select it with X now. Now that it's on your imp, you can scale it with the up and down directional buttons, or rotate it with L2 or the touchpad. See the outline at the top of the final platform? That's where the door needs to go. Use R2 or X to stamp it into place. You should know this isn't just any door, it's a very special one. Because of the animation and logic built into it, it will magically open when Connie goes near it. Notice how your imp still has a door attached even after you've stamped it down? That's what happens with elements from the Dreamiverse. That way, you can place as many as you need in a scene. We only need one door in this scene though, so you can remove the door element from your imp by pressing circle. The circle button removes whatever tool, gadget or element your imp has equipped, replacing it with the move tool. Okay, I think we're done here. Nice work completing the scene.
Thank you.
It doesn't mean you have to stop though. If you're feeling creative,
Oh,
why not come up with different ways for Connie to get across the platforms, using more elements from the collection? Just delete the old platforms with triangle and build your own. Remember to test your creations in play mode to make sure they work, and rewind time when you return to edit mode. All that's left now is to switch to play mode and walk Connie straight through the door to end this tutorial.
Bada boom, bada bing. Let's go, Connie. We learned how to make basic platformers. Hey, Cuthbert. Yeah. Let's go, mate. Yahoo! C'est simple. C'est facile.
Now you know how to grab, rotate, and scale objects. It's time I showed you how to clone things. Cuthbert has managed to get himself stuck again.
Silly
Luckily,
Cuthbert.
I've set up this scene so that we can use the clone tool.
Okay, going now. See you later. Definitely check out Little Nightmares if you get the time.
I will do,
Anything
Sophie.
you've seen.
Take care, dude.
This makes it
Have a
one
nice
of the
day.
most useful tools in a Dream Shaper's toolbox. You'll also get a chance to practice with all the other tools that you've learned so far. If we get Connie off this platform, maybe she'll help us out. Let's use the clone tool on this one small block to create a bridge. Remember how we used the L1 button to modify how the grab cam and the left stick work? Well, it can also change how the grab button works. Hover over the floating block with your imp and hold L1. Now grab the block with R2, and remember that if you press it gently, you can move it more slowly. Now you have another block. That's because grabbing things while holding L1 creates a clone of that object. Once you've created the clone, you can release L1, but don't let go of R2 until you're ready to place it in the scene. When you've found the right spot, release R2 to put it down. You can treat a cloned object just like you would any other element. You can move it with R2 and rotate it with L2. And scale it up and down with the directional buttons. Of course, anything you do to the block can be undone with the left directional button. You can even clone the cloned block. Let's do that next. Hover over it, hold L1,
Oh, Playboy.
then press and hold R2. You can use the clone tool to build a bridge between the first two platforms. Or you can create floating blocks for Connie to jump on. All that matters is that she can get to the next platform, so make sure you test your work in play mode. When Connie can get across, go back to edit mode, rewind time with L3, and move on to the next step.
Okay, who said play? Who said something? Lopi! Lopi!
Cute game.
Lopi! Yeah, it's not really a game, dude. It's just it's like a creator studio. You not heard of this?
Love you, emoji red heart.
Same, brother.
Getting Connie to that third platform looks easy enough. There's half a bridge between them, so we can just clone this block to finish it off. Okay, hold L1 and grab the block with R2 to clone it. Let go of L1 to stop cloning, then place the clone by releasing R2 to complete the bridge.
No, I don't know it. Is it good?
Quite right. Might need to try something different here. Why don't we rotate?
It's by the guys that made Little Big Planet. So it's like their latest project. These are just some of the tutorials. So I've already streamed some of the stuff people have made in it a few nights ago. So if you wanted to check that out, you can go see what kind of thing that people have actually made. Like the really good stuff. But I'm just going through some of the basic tutorials on how to build levels, some of the artwork. But yeah, it's just a big creator studio, man. If you like creating things, characters, art, music, you can do all that in Dreams.
I love Little Big Planet. It's my childhood.
Okay, well this is cheap at the moment on early access. You get the full game when it comes out, obviously. But it's £25 now, and it's going up. It'll probably go up to like 40, 50. If you like creating, dude, then
the clone. Hold L2 over it, then push the right stick sideways.
Like I said, I can't really show you anything right now because I'm doing the tutorials. But if you wanted to look at my stuff,
we should probably undo everything with the left directional button and start again.
Start again.
We'll make the arches match up by flipping the clone. Here's how you flip objects. First, hover over the arch and hold L1. Then gently grab the arch with R2 to create a clone. Remember, release L1 once you've made the clone. You have to release it or the next part won't work. Here comes the cool bit. While still holding the arch, click the L3 button on your controller to flip the arch horizontally. That's all there is to it. Now you try. Hold L1 and grab the arch with R2 to clone it. Release L1 and flip the arch horizontally by clicking L3.
I did it!
And don't forget, you can realign the clone while you're holding it by pressing the triangle button. Now, let's see what happens if you click R3. Nice! The arch is flipped vertically instead.
Half pipe.
We should probably line it up with the first arch now, and release R2 to place it down. We probably should have flipped it back first.
Yeah, we probably should have.
Just grab it with R2 and flip it again with R3.
Or just press undo.
Time to switch over to play mode and see how things are working. If Connie can get across the bridge to the third platform, you're ready to move on. But first return to edit mode and rewind time. Okay, Connie, we've almost
What's
made
up
it
with
to the
Toady?
door.
Did not hear him for a while.
I don't know, man. I guess he must be busy. He's dropped in a couple of my streams last few weeks.
So hold L1 and grab the block with R2 to clone it. Now place that clone a little higher than the original. And you know what? There's a better way, so let's undo that with the left directional button. We're going to try a new technique called repeat cloning.
Ooh, repeat cloning, hey?
What it does. That's right, it lets you make lots of clones at once. Let's give it a go. Hover over the block again, hold L1 and press and hold R2. Release L1 once you've made the clone, and move the block up and along. Don't put it down yet though. This is where you become a cloning expert.
I betrayed you.
Of the first clone, press the right directional button to create
the
second one.
How did you betray me, dude?
You guessed it, another press will create a third one. In fact, you can just keep pressing right to create more and more clones in a sequence. And if you make too many, no problem. Just press the left directional button to remove any clones you don't want. As you can see, all the clones are spaced evenly, and you can move the whole sequence by simply moving the clone that's on your imp. If you move the clone up, you can create a staircase. As always, put it down by releasing R2. Once the clones are in place, they won't be in a sequence anymore. You'll have to edit each block individually. See the dotted line around them?
Yes.
That's a selection. When you put repeat clones
I
down,
did not watch your live streams, emoji crying face.
Ah, I'll let you off.
You can move them as a group.
I'll let you off, mate. Don't worry about it.
If you only want to move one block, you can deselect the group by pressing them as a group. That's a selection. When you put repeat clones down, they're always selected automatically. That means you can move them as a group. If you only want to move one block, you can deselect the group by pressing circle. If you want to find out more, there's a whole tutorial on selecting and grouping objects. Move on to the next step when you're ready.
Next step, I'm ready.
Let's get back to the staircase. It's looking pretty good, but I have one more thing to show you before you move on.
I don't like it.
Let's get rid of all the clones we've made by
Yeah.
pressing the left directional button a few times.
Yeah, go away.
You'll notice all the repeated clones are undone together. Now hover over the first block, hold L1, then grab it to create a new clone. Remember to release L1 once you've made the clone, otherwise the next bit won't work.
I know.
This time, move the block where you want the last step of the staircase to be. There, right in front of the door. Don't let go of R2 yet though. Instead, press the left directional button and... look at that. You've created a sequence of clones between your imp and the original block. You can keep pressing left to create more steps or right to remove them. Once you're happy with your staircase, let go of R2 to place it in the scene. You can create incredible shapes with repeat cloning, so feel free to experiment. How you position the first clone will affect all the repeated clones. Rotating the clones, for example, will let you build ramps and spirals. And if you scale the clone with the up button, you can create a sequence that increases in size. So try different approaches and see what you can come up with. If the path is clear for Connie, switch over to play mode to test the scene.
Yo, I am in a party, gotta go. Emoji red heart, 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 emoji red heart.
Okay, Loopy, you have a good day, man. Nice to chat to you, dude. I couldn't I twist mine like he was doing? Oh well. Emoji red heart, emoji red heart, emoji red heart. Cuthbert, I'm coming. Cuthbert baby, for running up the chimney fire.
Welcome to part 4 of our Start Dreaming tutorials. Ah, I I see Cuthbert has managed to get himself in a pickle again.
Silly Cuthbert.
Connie, how do you put up with him? What a spanner.
What a spanner indeed.
But with Connie's help, we can rescue him. This time around,
There is problem with the stream.
How to select and group your creations and how to scope in and out of groups. Luckily, someone left behind a block for us to use.
What's wrong with it?
Remember how to repeat clone blocks to create...
Sony. Hey Sony, how you doing, man?
Hold L1, then grab the block with R2. Move it with the motion sensor function to create a clone. Just like last time, let go of L1 while still holding R2. Then press the directional buttons to make more clones. If you rotate the first block a little before you clone it, you can make an arch. Use L2 to make the first block angle up slightly, then make the clone angle down. Press the left directional button to repeat clone, and the clones will line up to make an arch. Amazing, right? Let's quickly test that in play mode.
Hey, pause. I'm not keeping up with you. Ah. Damn it.
Looks great. Line up to make an arch. Then make the clone angle down. Press the left directional button to repeat clone, and the clones will line up to make an arch. Amazing,
Oh,
right?
tits. I can't do it now.
Let's quickly test that in play mode.
Why can't I move it? There we go.
Looks great. Switch back to edit mode, rewind time, and go to the next step of the tutorial. Now, you probably noticed that all the blocks, the original as well as its clones, were selected automatically after cloning. You can tell when things are selected because they have an animated dashed outline. But after we switched between play and edit modes, everything was deselected. So let's select them again. All you have to do is hover your imp over one of the blocks and press X. There's the outline again. Now do the same to the rest until the whole bridge is selected. Can you see how each block has its own outline, with a double line where they meet?
I can.
That's because they're still individual elements.
Ah, let's group them together.
You can deselect them one at a time with X, but it's much quicker if you deselect them all at once with circle. Give it a try. There's also a faster way of selecting multiple objects.
The way I just did?
Just select one as before, but this time keep X held down. Now move your imp to select the others. Better than selecting one at a time, right?
Right.
So much faster.
So much.
The great thing about having multiple objects selected is that you can manipulate them as if they were one object. For example, if all the blocks are selected, you can clone the bridge sideways to create a double bridge.
Double bridge.
For Connie to cross it without falling off the edge. Try it in play mode.
Double bridge.
Across the gap, go back to edit mode
But a
and
triple
move
bridge.
on to the next step.
Oh no, I did the wrong one. Need to grab this one. Yeah, Connie, you get a triple bridge. No doubles for you. Don't like that. So there we go. There you go, Connie.
You know, this bridge would be really useful to help Connie cross to the next platform. Use X to select all the blocks again. If we're going to use this bridge a lot, we can make it into a group. That way, it will behave like a single element and you won't have to keep selecting all the blocks. Have you noticed the menu at the side of the screen?
I have.
It appears when you have one or more objects selected. That's the context.
Oh, if I leave, okay. Okay.
Menu. The options it gives you will
That's how
depend
you
on
get,
the situation you're in.
More tutorials.
In this case,
Hover.
all the buttons relate to selected objects. Look for the plus sign. That's the icon for the group button. The number next to it tells you how many objects
18.
you've selected. You can use this button now to turn all of those blocks into a group.
Boom.
There we go. The bridge is now a single element. You can tell because it has one outline around it instead of one around each block. And if you look over at the context menu, you'll see the group button now says ungroup. Use it if you want to break a group up. But we still need it to help Connie. So let's clone this bridge and place it between the second and third platforms. Just like before, hold L1 and grab the bridge with R2 to clone it. As always, remember to let go of L1. We don't need to test the bridge to see that it's not going to get Connie to the third
No, it's
platform.
not. It's not high
But
enough.
don't worry. We'll fix that in the next step when you're ready to move on.
I'm ready. Let's go. Let's go.
Our bridge needs a bit of work if it's going to reach the next platform. This is the perfect opportunity to learn a new technique, scoping in. Scoping in means you can jump into a group and edit the contents individually without having to ungroup it first. And since you can only edit things inside the group, you don't have to worry about messing up anything outside it. Let's give it a try now. Select the bridge with X if it isn't already selected. Then find the Scope In button near the bottom of the context menu. Notice that it's showing you a shortcut for it, L1 and X. So hover over the bridge group, hold L1 and press X. Now you're scoped in. We can now edit all the parts as if it wasn't a group. If you want to really focus on just the group, you can hide everything else in the scene. Just use the Hide Everything Else button in the context menu. The icon looks like a closed eye. There's also a Scope Out button in the top right corner. This is how you exit groups. Try scoping out now. Select the button with X or use the shortcut, L1 and circle. That's it. Now scope back in again so we can fix the bridge. Just hover over it, hold L1 and press X. I think what Connie needs to reach the next platform is a staircase. So use the move and clone tools to create a new one. Once you've built the staircase, test it out in play mode to make sure Connie can make it across. When you're happy with it, switch back to edit mode, rewind time and move on to the final step of this tutorial.
Meh. It'll do. How do I, can I just, actually, if I hold the top, no, that's cloud, if I hold it, no, how do I rotate it a little bit?
What's up?
What's up? There we go.
You making something?
I'm just doing the tutorials, the basic ones. So anybody that wants to know how easy it is to create stuff can come and have a little look. If even a moron like me can do it, then anybody can do it. I've already through them once, but I need to get them fixed in my brain.
Working?
It is working.
Fantastic. Now Connie just needs a bit more help to save poor old Cuthbert from his predicament.
Silly Cuthbert.
Luckily, you can clone your staircase group to reach the final platform.
Who is that? Who am I talking to anyway? Vegeta!
Group to the last platform.
Veggie! How you doing, man?
Don't forget to let go of L1 once the clone has been created. That's how you.
Wait, I didn't group these, did I?
If you select the group, you'll see a button in the context menu that saves the group as a new element. Saving a group as a new element means you can use it in other scenes or share it in the Dreamiverse. You can't do that in tutorials, but you can everywhere else. Now that you've mastered selecting and grouping, I'll leave you with a thought to ponder. You can also make a group inside a group. With that,
a group
I'll
inside
let
a
you
group?
Experiment. Once you're happy that you've mastered selecting, grouping and scoping, you have just one thing left to do. Go into play mode and take Connie and Cuthbert to the exit.
Come on, Cuthbert, you silly old sod. Oh, I've not done these ones yet. Wiring and logic. Why did I skip these? I think I went on to art afterwards, that was why. Okay, let's carry on with these then. I've not done these yet.
In this tutorial, you're gonna learn all about the exciting world of logic.
4!
Pay no
Ah, don't
attention to
cry,
Cuthbert.
Cuthbert.
It's not as complicated as it sounds. I promise. Let's check out the scene.
Oh no, maybe I did actually.
See the buttons on the platforms in front of our good friend Connie?
I do.
They activate the bridges that will take her to the next platform.
Okay.
At least that's what they're supposed to do. To get them working, you'll need to connect them to the gadgets that control them. You can't see gadgets when you're in play mode, but they let you do all sorts of useful things in edit mode. You can tell gadgets apart by their color and icons. Green gadgets are sensors and inputs. This one is what we call a trigger zone. It's one of the more versatile gadgets. It can trigger other gadgets when it detects something in the scene. Like in this case, Connie standing on the button. Hi Connie!
Hello.
If you select the gadget with X, you'll be able to see its detection zone. That's it, right there above the button. Press the circle button to deselect the trigger zone, and let's look at the next gadget. Red gadgets are movers and outputs, meaning they make things happen in the scene. This particular gadget is a rotator, and it's connected to the first bridge. Click R3 to start time, and let's see what it does.
Nothing!
Well, not a lot right now by the looks of it. That's because the rotator is switched off. You can tell because the gadget is dim at the moment. But if we connect these two gadgets together, we can turn the rotator on using the trigger zone. In the next step, I'll show you how. Before we start connecting things, make sure you can see both gadgets.
I can.
You'll notice they have ports sticking out of their sides.
Oh yes, so they do.
Ports on the left are inputs, and the ones on the right are outputs. Hover over the output port on the trigger zone now. You'll see the word detected appear. That means that when the trigger zone detects something, this output will send a signal. Before it can send that signal to the rotator though, we'll need to connect them with a wire. So hover over the detected output and press R2 or X. You'll notice your imp is now tethered to the port by a wire. Power ports have appeared on the gadgets too. It's these ports that switch gadgets on or off. Okay, drag the wire over to the red rotator gadget. Now hover over the power port at the bottom, then press R2 or X. Once the gadgets are connected, the wire will disappear automatically. That way, your scene won't get cluttered. After all, you don't want wires all over the place. You can see the wire again by hovering over either gadget. Okay, time to test our connection out. So let's switch over to play mode in the options menu. That's more like it. Now the trigger zone detects Connie when she stands on the button and activates the rotator on the bridge. As soon as she steps off, the rotator stops working. You can use the button to get the bridge lined up with the platform. Once Connie can make it to the second platform, you can head back to edit mode and move on to the next step.
How many tutorials are there?
Quite a lot.
Now that we've connected
For all the different parts of the game.
Let's take a look at the second platform. See the white gadget on its side? This gadget isn't a sensor or an output. It's called a microchip. Microchips are used to organize logic in scenes. You can think of them as boxes of gadgets and wires. Let's have a look inside. Hover over this one with your imp. Hold L1 and press X. It's just like scoping into a group of objects. This window is the microchip's canvas. And if these gadgets look familiar, it's because they're two rotators. Each one controls half of this jointed drawbridge. Try to connect the output from the trigger zone to the power ports on the rotators. You can create multiple wires from the same output. Or you can clone wires in the scene by holding
Be right
L1,
back.
then grabbing them
Okay.
with R2. Clone the wire near the rotator to create a new wire from the trigger zone. Once you've connected the trigger zone to the second rotator, switch over to play mode and make sure it's all working. Okay, jumping on the button now will activate the trigger zone and raise the drawbridge so that you can cross over the... Oh, wait a minute. The bridge has dropped down before Connie could cross.
Boo!
The signal to the rotator stopped sending as soon as Connie stepped off the trigger zone. Switch back to edit mode and rewind time with L3. In the next step, I'll show you how to make signals stay on. If we want the bridge to stay up, we'll need to add a gadget between the trigger zone and the rotator to keep it activated. We can do this with a counter. So let's go into the assembly menu. Press square to open it if it's closed. Select the gadgets menu with X. You'll find the counter in the logic and processing section. The gadgets in this menu take an input signal and change it in some way before sending it on. Go ahead and select the counter. Its icon is a tally counter. Now you can see the gadget on your imp. Hover over the microchip and it will snap to the canvas. Press R2 or X to stamp the counter onto the microchip. Then press circle to unequip it. The counter gadget counts up or down whenever it receives a signal through its inputs. By default, it starts its count at 0 and has a target of 1. Once it reaches that target, it sends a constant signal through its counter full output port. Before we connect it though, let's tidy up the wires connecting the trigger zone to the rotators. Just hover over them and press triangle to delete them. Now press R2 or X over the detected output of the trigger zone to create a new wire. Connect it to the increased count input port on the counter. That's the port with the plus sign icon. Now when the trigger zone is activated, the counter will go up to 1. And, this is the important part, it will stay at 1 even after the trigger zone deactivates. Now hover over the counter full output port of the counter. This port sends a signal when the counter reaches its target. Create a wire with R2 or X and connect it to one of the rotator's power ports. Then do the same for the other one. Time to switch to play mode and try out our new connections. When you're happy everything's working as it should, return to edit mode and move on to the next step. Just one more bridge for Connie to cross. As you can see, we have another microchip on the platform, so let's open it up. Hover over it with your imp, hold L1 and press X. Okay, looks like we have everything we need here. But Connie's an adventurer, So how about we make this last bridge more challenging? Adding a timer to the logic should get the adrenaline going. Once Connie activates the button, she'll only have a few seconds to cross before the bridge drops back down. Let's head back to the assembly menu. If it isn't already open, press square. Then go into the gadgets section. You'll find the timer in the same place as the counter, the logic and processing section. Its button has a clock face on it. Now go ahead and stamp the timer gadget onto the microchip with R2 or X. Then unequip it from your IMP with the circle button. Now let's take a closer look at the timer's inputs and outputs. You can see their names by hovering over the ports. The first input is a start timer port. Once this receives a signal, it will start the clock. The second one is reset timer, which sets the time back to 0. Over on the output side, we have timer finished and timer output. Timer finished sends a signal when the timer reaches the required number. It's set to 5 seconds by default. Timer output is a little more sophisticated. The signal it sends represents the timer's current progress. If, let's say, it's only halfway to its target, the signal it sends will be half strength. So how do we connect this so the bridge only stays up for a few seconds? Well, we need the bridge to be raised while the timer is running. So create a wire on the timer output with R2 or X. Remember how we used the counter on the previous platform? We can use one here too. Just like before, connect the wire to the counter's increase count input. Then connect the counter full output to the rotator's power port. Time to see if it works. Click R3 to test it out. As you can see, since the timer isn't connected to a trigger yet, the clock starts ticking as soon as we play the scene. The bridge goes up, but doesn't drop down when the timer finishes. That can only mean one thing. There's a problem with the logic. If you'd like to figure it out for yourself, feel free to check the gadgets and see what's wrong. Or move on to the next step and we'll go through it together. So let's take a look at why the bridge stayed up after the timer finished instead of going back down. Remember how we used the counter earlier to remember the signal from the trigger zone? Well, now it's remembering the signal from the timer, so we need to make it forget that once the timer finishes. Let's go over to the counter gadget. Hover over the inputs to see their names. This one here is reset count. It'll put the counter back to 0, which will turn off the rotator. So all we need to do is connect it to the timer, but to which output? Aha, there we go. We can use the timer finished output. Hover over it and create a wire with R2 or X. Stretch the wire over to the counter and connect it to the reset count input. But we also need to reset the timer, otherwise the logic will only work once. So let's get another wire from the timer finished output and connect this one to the reset timer input. You'll recognize it by the rewind symbol on it. All we have left to do is to connect the trigger zone to the start timer port so Connie can activate it. Okay, that was a lot of connections. So before we test it out, let's go over the logic we've made. First, Connie activates the trigger zone, which sends a signal to start the timer. Once the clock starts running, the timer output becomes active. This tells the counter to count up. That then turns on the rotator and raises the bridge.
Okay.
Now this is where the really clever stuff kicks in.
Yeah, where?
After 5 seconds, the timer finishes its count, which activates the timer finished output.
Boom.
This in turn resets the counter to 0,
Boom.
cutting the signal to the rotators and lowering the bridge. And let's not forget, it also resets the timer, so the logic could be triggered again if Connie didn't cross the bridge the first time. Isn't logic exhilarating? Take your time digesting all that. Logic is easier to read if you route your wires neatly. Grab wires with X to change their paths. You can also move the gadgets around by grabbing them with R2. Feel free to test it out in play mode, but don't leave the scene just yet. I have one more thing to show you.
Hey, it didn't work. Oh, there we go. Oop. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1,000, 2,000, 3,000, 4,000, 5,000. Okay. Alright. Alright, Connie, Cuthbert, be quiet.
So, on the third platform, we've set up a timer that makes the bridge drop after 5 seconds. But I think that might be too easy for a seasoned pro like Connie.
Definitely, let's make it 2 seconds.
A little bit more challenging. First, if you're in play mode, switch back to edit mode and rewind time with L3. Let's move in closer to the microchip with the timer. You can use the grab cam, R1, to move your view. Now I'll show you how to tweak a gadget's settings. Hover over the timer gadget, hold L1 and press square. This tweak menu contains the settings for the timer. Hover over the sliders and buttons to see their names. The top slider sets the target time for the timer. If we lower this setting, the bridge will stay up for a shorter time. To adjust the value, hover your imp over the slider, then hold X. Use your imp to drag the slider left or right. Set it to around 3 seconds. It doesn't have to be exact. If you're a stickler for precision, you can adjust the slider incrementally using the up and down directional buttons. Just hover your imp over the slider and press up or down to tweak the value. In fact, why don't we make things really interesting for Connie? Let's set it to 2.5 seconds. You can close the tweak menu now by selecting the cross in the top corner with X. Or you could use a shortcut. Just hold L1, then press circle while hovering over the menu to close it quickly. The same shortcut works for closing microchips. Give it a try now. Hold L1, then hover your imp over the microchip and press circle. Time to test out the scene in play mode. If you have any problems crossing that bridge, you can always tweak the timer again in edit mode. Remember, you just hover over the gadget, hold L1 and press square to open its tweak menu. When you're all set, take Connie to the last platform and walk through the door to complete this tutorial.
Let's go, Cuthbert. One of these, I've missed one of these out. So I remember something different than these the other day. Health Destroyer and Checkpoints tutorial.
In this tutorial, you'll use logic to make health go up and go down.
No, Cuthbert, you silly sausage.
Let's start by going into play mode. See if you can get Connie across that first gap. Oops.
Whoa!
Sorry, Connie. I forgot to fix that.
You Dark Souls to me.
Don't worry, though. Even after falling such a long way, Connie's just fine. There's only one problem. There's no way for her to get back up.
Huh?
What we
Well,
need
that
is
L3.
for Connie to respawn on a platform if she falls. So
Ah.
that's going to be our next job. First, switch back to edit mode. Remember to rewind time with L3 as we always do after play mode.
As we always do about this time.
In order to make Connie respawn, we're going to use a health modifier gadget. We'll use it to make the floor around the platforms lethal. Health modifiers can damage or heal anything that has a health manager. And, as luck would have it, Connie has one built into her logic.
Nice. Nice one, Connie.
Go to the assembly menu. Open it with the square button if it's closed. Select the gadgets menu, the one with the 3 connected squares. You'll find the health modifier in the movers and output section, which is represented by a box with an arrow. Now select the button that has a clockwork heart on it. Your imp will now be equipped with a health modifier gadget. Stamp it somewhere central, near the floor, using R2 or X. Then unequip the gadget with circle. Your scene now has a health modifier, but to make it work as intended, we'll have to tweak it first. We'll do that in the next step.
Oh.
Let's go
Let's
ahead and
do
open
it.
the health modifiers tweak menu. Hover over it, hold L1 and press square.
Tweakage.
Here you can set the options for how the health modifier works. That includes how much health is modified, which is shown in the first slider. Right now, it's set to -100. This means it will take 100 health points away from anything it affects. Just enough to make Connie respawn. The modifier mode is set to per hit, so 100 health points will be taken away when anything touches it. But since we want the area around the platforms to be lethal, we need to set the modifier type to zone. Select the zone icon with X now, then go to the Zone Properties tab so we can change its size and shape. The icon is at the top of the menu and looks like a box in a zone. Look for the Zone Shape section of the menu, then select the cube. You can use the zone sliders to make the zone bigger. Be careful not to make it too tall. The respawn zone should be level with the pink lines around the platforms. If you need to, move the health modifier gadget nearer to the floor. When you hover over the edges of the zone, you'll see white arrow gizmos appear. Grabbing these with R2 will let you change the size of the zone. Using those, you can make sure the area around the platforms is covered. Now let's test it in play mode and see what happens. Perfect. If Connie falls off now, she'll just respawn back on the platform. Before we move on, maybe we should do something about this booby-trapped bridge. Switch back to edit mode and rewind time with L3. There. See what's causing it? It's that trigger zone. When Connie activates it, the bridge collapses and there's no way across.
Whoa, you're going too
If you
far ahead.
finish the-
Whoa.
Area around the platforms is covered. Now let's test it in play mode and see what happens. Perfect. If Connie falls off now, she'll just respawn back on the platform. Before we move on, maybe we should do something about this booby-trapped bridge. Switch back to edit mode and rewind time with L3. There. See what's causing it? It's that trigger zone. When Connie activates it, the bridge collapses and there's no way across. If you've finished the first logic tutorial, you'll know that the counter is being used to remember the trigger zone has been activated. If you follow the wires, you'll see there's one connected to each block. These red dots on the blocks are not gadgets. They show that a wire is connected to a setting in the block's tweak menu. Explore the logic for yourself. Or, if you want to move on and get Connie on her way, just delete the trigger zone by pressing triangle over it. That'll prevent any of the logic from activating. Then, once Connie can safely make it to the second platform, move on to the next step. Now's probably a good time to show you how to add checkpoints. When playable characters like Connie activate a checkpoint, the scene remembers their progress. So when they respawn, they'll appear at the last checkpoint instead of starting off at the beginning. Go to the Assembly menu, then the Gadgets menu. If the last section you used is still open, close it by pressing circle over it. Expand the Gameplay Gear section with X, then select the checkpoint. It's the one that looks like a location marker. There. Now your imp is equipped with a checkpoint gadget. The direction of a checkpoint determines which way a character will face when it respawns. So make sure the front of the gadget, the side with the black outline, is facing the direction you want Connie to face. Remove the gadget from your imp with the circle button, then open the Checkpoints tweak menu. Checkpoints use a detection zone, just like health modifiers. So select the Zone Size tab from the menu. This is set to a sphere by default modifiers. Gadget from your imp with the circle button, then open the Checkpoints tweak menu. Checkpoints use a detection zone, just like health modifiers. So select the Zone Size tab from the menu. This is set to a sphere by default, but to make sure it can't be missed, let's change it to a cube. You can use the zone size sliders to make the checkpoint cover the width of the platform. Above the gadget, you'll see a white move gizmo. Grab it with R2 to put the activation zone where you want it. Just make sure Connie can't miss it. The white handle shows the direction Connie will face when she respawns. Check that it's pointing the right way. Grab it with R2 if you need to adjust it. Let's close that tweak menu with L1 and circle. Now try it out in play mode to see if the checkpoint remembers your progress. Sorry, Connie. We're gonna have to respawn you again. But it's all in the name of science, I promise. Great, there she is, right at the checkpoint again. When you're ready, go back to edit mode, rewind time, and move on to the next step. This next bridge looks a bit too hot to walk on. But Connie's a tough explorer, and she's always ready for danger, so let's give it a go. Okay, that block's too big for Connie to jump over. Better get her back to safety before it's too late. Let's switch back to edit mode and see how the bridge is damaging Connie. Move closer to the bridge and keep an eye out for any gadgets attached to it. Ah, there's one. A clockwork heart icon, so it's another health modifier. It looks like, instead of using a zone, this one is attached to the bridge. So whenever Connie walks on it, she loses health. If only that block wasn't in the way, she could make it across. But what if the block itself could lose health? We could give it a health manager of its own and see how that works out. Go to the assembly menu, then open the gadgets menu. You may need to close the gameplay gear section if you opened it earlier. Then you can expand the movers and output section. Look for a heart icon, not the clockwork heart this time. Select it with X to give your imp a health manager gadget. Stamp one near the block with R2 or X, then press circle to unequip it from your imp. To make the health manager affect the block, we'll need to attach it. The easiest way to attach gadgets to objects is to use what we call surface snap. Grab the health manager with R2 and hold it over the block. All you have to do to activate surface snap is hold L1 while your imp holds the gadget. This makes it hug the surface of any object you hover over. Now release R2 to attach the gadget to the block. You can also let go of L1 to stop using surface snap. In the next step, I'll show you how to tweak this health manager. Now that we've given the block health, let's take a closer look at it. Hover over the health manager, hold L1 and press square to open its tweak menu. The sliders here define the block's maximum and current health. Click R3 to play time, and you'll see the health starts to go down. That's because the bridge's health modifier is damaging it. But you'll notice it's going down much slower than Connie's health was when she was on the bridge. The reason for that is this health manager has a 1-second cooldown. So whenever the block takes damage, it's invulnerable for 1 second after that. Grab the cooldown slider with X and pull it to the left with your imp. So what happens when it reaches 0? Not a lot right now. But we can deal with that in the next step. For now, feel free to experiment with the health manager settings. Start time with R3 to see your changes, then rewind it with L3 to reset the health manager. Once you're done, you can move on to the next step. An object doesn't automatically get destroyed when it runs out of health, so we need to do a bit more work before we can get rid of that block. Let's take a closer look at its health manager. If its tweak menu is still open, close that first with L1 and circle. See the output ports on its right edge. Hover over the one at the bottom, the one that has a heart with a cross over it. This is the no health output, which sends a signal when the health manager is depleted. It can be used to trigger any number of things, but right now, we're going to use it to destroy the block. Go to the assembly menu and take a look in the gadget section. It may still be open from earlier when you selected the health manager. Look for a skull icon on a button in the movers and output section and select it with X. This is the Destroyer gadget. It destroys whatever it's attached to. To attach it to the block, we can use Surface Snap. So hover the Destroyer over the block, hold L1 to make it Surface Snap, and press R2 or X to stamp it. Now you can unequip the Destroyer gadget with Circle. Okay, before we connect it up, let's just see if it works by clicking R3. Oh, it works all right. When time is running, the Destroyer activates and destroys the block. Rewind time with L3 to bring it back. We don't want the Destroyer to activate until the block's health has run out. To do that, we'll need to connect the no health output port to the Destroyer's power. So hover your imp over the health manager's no health output port and press R2 or X to create a wire. This will make power ports appear on the gadgets in the scene. Stretch the wire over to the Destroyer and connect it to the power port with R2 or X. Great! Time to test it again with R3 and see what happens. When the block's health runs out, it will get destroyed, leaving the path clear for Connie. But how do we know how much health the block has left? We could always look at its tweak menu, but you can't see that in play mode. So click L3 to rewind time, and I'll show you how to display health in the next step. If the Health Manager's tweak menu isn't open already, open it now with L1 and square. When you hover over the menu sliders and buttons, you'll see ports popping out of the side. These work just like the ones on the outside of the gadget, but there are a lot more of them. And you might also have noticed that there's another gadget stamped on the side of the block. That's a number displayer. If we connect a wire from the current health output to the number displayer's input port, we'll be able to see the block's health count down in play mode. So let's go ahead and do that. Hover over the current health slider's output port. Then press R2 or X to create a wire and stretch it to the number displayer. Once you've connected it to its input with R2 or X, you can switch over to play mode and test out the whole scene so far. Excellent. Now we can see the block taking damage until it's destroyed. Once you can get Connie to the next platform, switch back to edit mode and move on to the next step.
That's a health regenerator.
Well, Connie made it through, but she's a bit worse for wear. The burn effect you see on her is triggered by the current health output from her health manager. It gives you a visual cue of her health. The more singed she gets, the less health she has. I'm not sure poor Connie has enough health left to make it across the last bridge. What she needs is a bit of healing. So let's create a healing zone where she can recharge. This green pad looks like a good place to recover. We can turn it into a healing zone by placing a health modifier on it, using Surface Snap. You've used Surface Snap before, so this should be no problem.
No problem.
Go to the assembly menu
Gadgets.
and select a health modifier from the movers and output menu. It's the one with the clockwork heart on it, remember?
Health modifier.
Now activate Surface Snap by holding L1. Then attach the health modifier to the green pad. Now you can unequip the gadget with the circle button and open the modifier's tweak menu. We need to change it so it heals Connie. The health modifier is set to -100 by default, which won't do Connie any good. She has 100 health to start with, so that will take it all away and make her respawn. Grab the slider with X, drag it right, and set it to +20. We want the healing zone to heal Connie while she's standing on it, so you also need to set the modifier mode to continuous. You can leave the modifier type as impact, since you've snapped the health modifier to the platform. And that's all there is to it. Close the tweak menu with L1 and circle, and give it a try in play mode.
Heal me.
Alright, that should give Connie the health boost she needs to cross that final bridge. Oh, she's been through a lot today, so take her through the door to end this tutorial.
Hi, Cuthbert. Be careful with your RC playing in future, buddy. Ugh.
This tutorial is all about connectors. Something Cuthbert hasn't quite got the hang of. Connectors join objects together in a way that lets them move. We're going to use them to help Connie get to Cuthbert. First things first though, we need to be precise when using connectors, so let's turn on the grid snap guide. That way, everything will line up properly. So, go to the assembly menu and open the guides section. Now select the grid icon with the X button. Now that grid snap is on, any objects you move and tools you use will snap in line with the grid in the scene. You can adjust how fine the grid is using the plus and minus icons on the button. But for this tutorial, it's best if you leave the grid size at 1. Now, let's see how we can make our way to Cuthbert. The best way to find out what needs to be connected is to play the scene and see for ourselves. But instead of switching over to play mode, we can start time in edit mode by clicking R3.
Ah.
Aha. Well, this is odd. The bridge has fallen down, but the second
I'll never get
is still
across.
floating in place. Why is one object floating while the other is falling? Click L3 to rewind time. Let's check the bridge's tweak menu. Remember, tweak menus allow us to see and change the settings for objects in edit mode. Hover your imp over the bridge, hold L1 and press the square button to open its tweak menu. Tweak menus differ depending on what sort of object you're tweaking. The bridge is a sculpture. Sculptures are pretty complex things, and their tweak menus have lots of pages. To switch pages, use your imp to select the different tabs at the top. Maybe we'll find something on the physical properties page to tell us why the bridge is falling down. Its icon is a Newton's cradle, like one of those desk ornaments where the metal balls bash into each other. Select it with X. This page contains the sculpture's physical properties and attributes. There are lots of buttons and sliders here, but the one we're interested in is the top one. Aha! I thought so. Someone's gone and switched on the movable option. Okay, I admit it. It was me.
You silly
It
person.
wouldn't be much of an adventure if Connie could just stroll across the bridge, would it?
I guess not.
Making something movable means it becomes physical. That means that forces in the scene, like collisions, the imp, or in this case gravity, can move it. Luckily, we can stop the bridge from falling down by adding a connector to it.
Stop the bridge from falling down.
The next step, once you're ready to move on.
Falling down, falling down. Let's stop the bridge falling down.
All you need to keep the bridge from falling is a piece of string. Not just any piece of string, though. It's what we in the dream shaping business call
magic
a
string
connector.
Oh.
We'll need to attach the other end to something unmovable, like the blue cylinder above the bridge. Start by moving your imp with the left and right sticks until you can see the top of the bridge and the bottom of the blue cylinder. Make sure time is rewound. Click L3 if it isn't. Now open the assembly menu and select the 3 connected squares to open the gadgets menu. Look for the button with the joint icon, which will take you to the connectors submenu.
A joint?
You can move the menu with your imp by grabbing it with R2. Select the string button. Its icon is the 2 circles connected by a wavy line. You'll see that a string connector appears on the tip of your imp. Now let's get connecting. You should always make the first connection from the object that won't move. We call this the parent object. In this case, it's the blue cylinder, but it could be something else, like the frame of a door. See the yellow dot on the cylinder? I put that there to show the best place for a connection. So hover over it and press R2 or X to connect the string. The grid snap guide will help you line it up exactly with the yellow spot. When you move your imp now, you'll notice it's tethered to the cylinder. It also has a blue gizmo on the end of it.
I got one step ahead of you.
Now let's stretch that string down to the bridge, all the way to the blue dot. The blue gizmo connects the string to the movable object, which we call the child object. Hover over the blue dot. See how the grid snaps it into line?
I do.
Let's connect the string there with R2 or X. If your bridge isn't in line, just make sure that time is rewound. Now that the blue gizmo is connected, you can press the circle button to unequip the string connector from your imp. And there you have it. The cylinder and the bridge are connected. Click R3 to start time and check that it's working. Well, it looks a bit wobbly, but it's nothing Connie can't handle. Switch over to play mode and have a go. When you can get Connie across the bridge to the second platform, return to edit mode and rewind time with L3. Time to get Connie over to the third platform. So, the small pink platform and the blue step aren't much use to her right now. But if we make the platform move backwards and forwards, she can hop onto it and cross over. To do that, we'll need a connector called a piston.
I got your piston right here. Where does the pollen go?
You'll find the piston in the connector section. It's somewhere near the middle and looks like, well,
a piston.
Now that it's equipped on your imp, you can start connecting. First, press R2 or X to join it to the blue step.
Where does the pollen go?
So it's the parent object. I've put a yellow dot on it to show you the best place to connect it. Next, connect the blue end to the child object, which is the floating platform. See how GridSnap keeps the connector perfectly straight?
Yeah, I turned GridSnap off.
Hover over the blue dot, then press R2 or X.
Should be okay though.
Remember, the child object is the part that needs to be able to move. So when you join a connector to its child, that object will automatically become movable.
Boing, 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 boing. It's a bit fast.
When you've placed the piston,
Let's slow that down a bit.
Circle to unequip it. Click R3 to test the connector.
Boing, 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 boing.
That's more like it. The piston is now moving the platform back and forth. Rewind time with L3. Now Connie might not be too happy if we make her jump on that.
No, it's
so
really quick.
Calm the piston
Yeah,
down a
well
bit.
said. Let's slow it down.
First, open the piston's tweak menu. Hover anywhere over it, hold L1 and press square. If the tweak menu blocks your view of the piston, you can grab it and move it with R2.
Boom, 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 boom.
This white gizmo shows the maximum length and speed of the piston. You can change the speed by adjusting the slider with the clock icon. That's the cycles per minute. Grab the slider by holding X over it with your imp and reduce the value. The further to the left you move, the faster the number will change. It doesn't need to be exact. Somewhere around 15 should do it. But if you want to get a more precise number,
up and down.
You can adjust the slider with the up and down directional buttons instead.
Boom.
Notice how it's slowed down now. Click R3 to see it moving the platform.
Oh yeah, much more manageable.
When you're happy with the speed, close the tweak menu with the close button or use L1 and circle. Then rewind time with L3. Time to switch over to play mode and test out the scene so far. Make sure the platform isn't moving too fast to jump on. You can always go back to edit mode and tweak the piston until you're happy with it. Once Connie has made it all the way across, rewind time in edit mode and move on to the next step.
Let me in my... Yeah. I got your piston right here.
Alright, there's just one more gap for Connie to cross. We have a plank and a step to attach it to. For the plank to drop down, we'll need it to pivot like a hinge, which means we'll need to use a bolt connector this time. Go into the connector section in the assembly menu.
Bolt or motor bolt?
Select the icon with the nut on it. That's the bolt connector.
Boom, 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 boom.
Now you can connect it just like you did with the string and the piston.
I got your piston right here.
And because I'm so nice, I've placed some yellow and blue dots and a sneaky new purple one. So that you can see where to make the connections.
Thanks, mate. It's very nice of you.
They're quite close together this time, so move in closer for a good view. Remember, you can use the grab cam on the R1 button to zoom in close. As always, connect the parent object first, the yellow dot. Then you can connect the child object, the blue dot. The GridSnap will keep the bolt in a straight line so you don't have to worry about it. Once it's all connected, you can unequip the bolt connector using the circle button.
Surely you want on the other side too.
You've probably noticed that there's a purple gizmo halfway along the bolt. That's the pivot which the bolt rotates around. Click R3 to see how it all works.
It's gonna fall. Swing-a-dingy.
Right. It looks like we'll need to reposition the pivot to get the plank moving correctly. Click L3 to rewind time and reset the plank. Now go ahead and grab the purple gizmo with R2. Move it so it's by the purple dot. While you're grabbing the pivot gizmo with R2, press triangle to align it to the grid. Now grab it with L2 and use the sticks to rotate it so its axis goes through the bottom of the plank. The grid snap guide will help you line it up exactly. The child object, in this case the plank, will rotate around that axis. Once it's all lined up, switch over to play mode to test it out. If you've done it correctly, the plank should balance upright. Connie will need to push the plank down, unless, of course, the plank isn't long enough. Oh
My
well,
plank...
Switch back to edit mode.
My plank fell. Are you sure I don't need another one?
We'll
On
sort
the
out
other
the
side,
plank
mate.
in the next step.
Wait. Go back. Rewind. The hell? The hell? Oh, I've broken these tutorials. I don't know how. Internet connection. Nothing wrong with my internet connection, mate.
To edit mode and rewind time. Upright. Once it's all lined up, switch over to play mode to test it out. If you've done it correctly, the plank should balance upright. Connie will need to push. Once it's all, guide will help align it to the grid. Gizmo with R.
Boom, 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 boom. What did I do wrong? First things first, let's put that grid snap back on. Doesn't seem to have appeared. Let's try over there for some reason. But not over here. Let me see what you're doing.
2. Move it so it's by the purple dot. While you're grabbing the pivot gizmo with R2, press triangle to align it to the grid. Now grab it with L2 and use the sticks to rotate it so its axis goes through the bottom of the plank. The grid snap guide will help you line it up exactly. The child object, in this case the plank, will rotate around that axis. Once it's all lined up, switch over to play mode to test it out. If you've done it correctly, the plank should balance upright. Connie will need to push the plank down, unless, of course, the plank isn't long enough. Oh well, switch back to edit mode and rewind time. We'll sort out the plank in the next step.
Stupid plank. What a planker. What a complete planker.
To make sure Connie can reach the last platform, we could always make the plank longer.
Yeah.
But that's a completely different tutorial. Instead, let's try restricting the bolt's movement. We can do that by giving it an angle limit. First, you'll need to bring up the bolt tweak menu.
Excuse me.
So hover over any part of the bolt, hold L1 and press square. You should see the Use Limits button about halfway down. Select it with X. And look at that. 3 handles have appeared. 2 pale yellow ones and a longer pale blue one. The yellow ones set the range of movement, which is represented by the transparent arc between them. We need to move one of these yellow handles so it's just a little bit left of vertical. It should look like an 11 o'clock position. Now move the other yellow handle to a 3 o'clock position. If your handle doesn't line up exactly, just press triangle while you're grabbing it. This will realign the handle to the grid. The blue handle represents the position of the child object, so you need to line it up with the plank in the 12 o'clock position. Press triangle to realign the handle to the grid if necessary. You can close the tweak menu now and head into play mode to test the scene. If everything's working correctly, Connie should be able to reach Cuthbert. And if you feel like experimenting, you can try out some other connector types. See what you can come up with.
Alright.
Then, when you're done editing the scene, go through the door in play mode to finish the tutorial.
Oh, Cuthbert.
Is in a spot of bother.
Always getting
Connie
yourself
needs our
into a
help
pickle.
to get across these platforms so she can rescue Cuthbert. So how about we add a little handmade animation to get her there?
Let's do it.
You don't need to go into play mode to see that Connie won't be able to make this jump.
You're right, I don't.
So let's animate that floating ledge down to her using an action recorder. Action recorders are super easy to use. Just stamp one in your scene and it will record anything you move with the imp. And we mean anything. It'll even record you moving or tweaking gadgets. We'd better get going. Connie's getting really impatient. You know what cones are like.
Steady, mate.
Go to the assembly menu. Press a square button if it's not already open.
I know a lot of very patient
then head
cones.
to the animate menu. The animate icon is a clapperboard. That thing they use in movies before the director says,
Action!
Now you get to be the director, and you can use these tools and gadgets to animate objects. Select the action recorder, the icon with a film strip and a plus sign on it. You'll now have an action recorder gadget on your imp. Stamp it down, somewhere near the floating ledge. A progress bar will appear at the top of the screen, along with a record button on the right. Also, your imp will turn red. This means you're ready to start recording. Don't worry, recording won't start until you begin moving or changing things. When you're ready, grab the floating ledge with R2. Move it slowly towards Connie using the motion sensor function or the sticks. You'll notice that the bar starts to fill, recording your every move. Don't worry, it's not a time limit. The bar fills up as a visual indicator of something being recorded.
In back.
So take your time. When you let go of R2, the recording will pause.
Welcome back.
If you move your view or use the grab cam, that won't be recorded. But if you've started time with R3, recording will continue when you let go of R2. That's why it's important to rewind or pause time before recording anything. That way, your action recorder only contains what you put into it. When you've finished recording, select the Stop Recording button in the context menu. Or you can use the shortcut L1 and circle button to exit the action recorder. Your imp will go back to normal to show that recording has stopped. Click R3 to play back your animation. Handmade animations are always a bit wobbly, but practice makes perfect. Calibrating your imp can help when using the motion sensor function. Just hold your controller in a comfortable position, then hold the Options button for a few seconds. In the next step, I'll show you how to edit a recorded animation. Anything you record is stored in the action recorder gadget. If you hover over the floating ledge, the action recorder will pulse. Select the action recorder with X and dashed lines will appear on the objects animated with it. It'll also show the animation path. That's this dashed line. If you're not happy with your animation, redoing it is easy. First, rewind time with L3. Then hover over the action recorder gadget, hold L1 and press X. Now we can start recording again. Select the retake button in the context menu to replace the old animation. Now you can record a new one. Move the platform so it stops in front of Connie. You can undo actions you perform using the left directional button, but it won't undo any time that has passed. So it's better to use the retake button to undo animations. Move the floating ledge from the upper platform down to Connie. Don't worry if the animation's too slow or too fast. We can fix that later. Make sure you press the stop recording button when you're done. Spend a little time practicing with the action recorder. In the next step, I'll show you how to tweak your animation. Another way to edit animations is to tweak them. Hold L1 and press the square button over the action recorder gadget to open its tweak menu. Here you can see all the tweaks for the action recorder. By default, the playback mode is set to loop, so it plays the animation over and over again. But you can set them to play once, sustain, or to ping pong. Once will play the whole animation just one time. Sustain will play the animation for as long as the action recorder has power. If it loses power, it will stop. Then it will continue from that point when it's powered again. Ping pong plays the animation forward once, and then plays it in reverse. Then forward, then backwards, and so on. That sounds like a good option for our floating ledge. Select ping pong with X. Click R3 to start time and play the animation. You can also change the animation speed to make it slower or faster.
Oh wait, oh shit, I'm in record mode.
Grab the slider with X and use your imp to change the speed. If you want to explore more of the action recorder tweaks, you can.
Whoa, it's not moving now.
If you hover over any button for a few seconds, and more info...
Can you just get Dreams in the PS Store?
Yeah, that's where I got it from.
To close the tweak menu, just hold L1 and press the circle button anywhere over it. And of course, you can undo any changes you make by pressing the left directional button. Switch to play mode to test your changes. When you're ready, come back to edit mode and start the next step.
Yeah, it's only available on the store at the moment, I think. I don't know when the official release is, but it's at a discounted price at the moment too. So you get it for £25, probably $30. I think it's going to be full price when it actually gets the full release, but if you buy the early access you get the full release as a free upgrade.
Now that Connie's made it up to the higher platform, how will she get back down to the next one? First, rewind time with L3. You probably already know about cloning objects, but do you know that you can clone their animations along with them? I'm sure you remember how to clone, but if not, just hold L1 and grab the ledge you animated with R2. Once you've made the clone, release L1, then move the ledge to the other side and release R2 to place it. Not only did you clone the ledge, but you also cloned its animation. Click R3 to start time. Now we just need to flip it so that it moves in the correct direction. First, make sure you rewind time. Grab the platform with R2. Then click L3 to flip it horizontally. Depending on where you grabbed it, you might have to move it closer to the other platform after flipping. You may also need to realign it with triangle before releasing R2 to put it back down. Now click R3 to start time, and the platforms should move in opposite directions.
Ta-da!
Both animations are stored in the same action recorder. So if you retake or delete the action recorder, it will affect both animations. Now go into play mode and see if Connie can make it across both gaps.
Whoa, whoa,
Switch
Nally.
back to edit mode when you're ready
What
to
the
move
hell
on.
happened then? Okay, that's no good. We need to slow it down.
Now let's get Connie to Cuthbert and get them through the door before Cuthbert has a total meltdown. I've placed a shiny helper cube. Let's call it Cuthbot. That holds up the next platform, but it's not very animated at the moment. To get it to walk back and forth towards the exit, we need to use record possession. It allows you to possess puppets and record a performance with them. Open the assembly menu, then go to the animate menu. Select record possession. It's the button with the sock puppet icon. Your imp can now possess the puppets in the scene. In the context menu, you'll see the count. Now let's get Connie to Cuthbert and get them through the door before Cuthbert has a total meltdown. I've placed a shiny helper cube. Let's call it Cuthbot. That holds up the next platform, but it's not very animated at the moment. To get it to walk back and forth towards the exit, we need to use record possession. It allows you to possess puppets and record a performance with them. Open the assembly menu, then go to the animate menu. Select record possession. It's the button with the sock puppet icon. Your imp can now possess the puppets in the scene. In the context menu, you'll see the count-in button. When this is selected, you'll get a 3-second count-in before recording starts. Press R2 over the Cuthbot to possess the puppet and start the countdown. When the count reaches 0, the possession recorder begins recording. Unlike the action recorder, it records constantly. So time will be recorded even when the cube isn't moving. Walk the Cuthbot around the obstacles to the final platform. Pause for a moment, turn around, then walk back to where the Cuthbot started. Starting and ending at the same place will help to make the animation loop smoothly. Press the circle button to depossess. You'll notice that the recording pauses when you depossess. Select Stop Recording in the context menu to exit the possession recorder. Once you've stopped recording, click L3 to rewind time, then R3 to start time, and watch what you've recorded. In the last step, I'll show you how to edit the recorded possession. You may have noticed a possession recorder gadget has appeared next to the cuff bot. When you're using Record Possession, this gadget appears the moment you press the Stop Recording button. Select it with X to view the animation path. The Possession Recorder gadget also lets you edit and tweak the animation. Hold L1 and press X over the Possession Recorder to scope in and edit it. Just like the Action Recorder, you can choose to retake the animation by selecting the button in the context menu. To stop editing the Possession Recorder, select Stop Recording in the context menu. Or hold L1 and press the circle button to quickly scope out. You can also tweak the Possession Recorder with L1 and the square button. It has exactly the same options as the Action Recorder. Experiment with the recorder and the different tweak options. Remember, you can see more info about the tweak settings by hovering over them for a few seconds. Close the tweak menu by pressing L1 and the circle button anywhere over it. Once you're done editing, switch over to play mode to test out the completed scene. Then Connie can navigate to the last platform and help Cuthbert through the door to complete the tutorial.
Oh, you... You gonna go again? Cuthbert, stop crying. I'm here. Yeah. Boom, 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 boom.
You might be able to animate wobbly platforms with the Action Recorder, but keyframes are where animation gets serious. Nice try, Cuthbert, but leave the dream shaping to the experts.
Silly
We're gonna
Cuthbert.
use keyframes to animate the platforms so Connie can reach the exit. A keyframe records any changes you make to an object, such as its position, tweak menu settings, or anything else you can think of. Then it stores those changes in a gadget that you can switch on and off. Okay, let's use keyframes to help Connie get across those platforms. First, go to the assembly menu. If it's closed, press the square button to open it. Look for the animate button, which has a clapperboard icon, and click on that. Start by selecting the keyframe gadget, which is the one with the diamond and the plus sign. Then stamp it in the scene above the first gap. You'll notice there's now a stop recording button in the context menu, and your imp now looks like a red keyframe. That means the keyframe gadget is recording any changes you make in the scene. But unlike the Action Recorder, it only records the state of things, not a period of time. It's probably easier to understand if we put it into practice. Let's try it on the block that's on the ground in front of Connie. Grab it with R2 and place it between the first two platforms. You'll see some dashed lines appear on the block. These tell you that the keyframe has recorded the change you've made to the object. You can move it as many times as you like. It'll only store the final result. If that's not the outcome you wanted, you can always undo your last change with the left directional button. The next bit is super important. To finish and store your changes in the keyframe, you need to select the Stop Recording button in the context menu. Select it now and see what happens. That's right, the block has snapped back to its original position. That's because the keyframe isn't active right now. But we can still see what's recorded by selecting the gadget with X. There, the block is back to where you moved it. You'll notice the keyframe doesn't record how things moved, just where they moved to. Make sure you deselect the keyframe before moving on. You can do that by pressing the circle button. In the next step, I'll show you how to use your keyframe in the scene. Now that you've recorded a keyframe, let's look at how to activate it. See the trigger zone above the first platform? Select it with X to check its area of effect. Okay, it looks like the zone stretches across the whole gap. Deselect it with the circle button. Then use the sticks or the grab cam to move in closer to the gadget. You'll notice an output port on its side, labelled Detected. This sends a signal when it detects a possessed puppet like Connie. We need to connect this to the keyframe, so select the port with R2 or X to create a wire. Then stretch it to the keyframe gadget with your IMP and use R2 or X to connect the wire to the power port. Now the trigger zone signal will switch on the keyframe when it detects Connie. Try it out in play mode. Just press the options button and select the controller icon. See, as soon as Connie enters the trigger zone area, the block springs into place. Well, it works okay, but the animation's a bit fast, don't you think? We can do something about that after you take Connie across. Head back into edit mode, rewind time with L3, and I'll show you how to add smoothing to the keyframe in the next step. Okay then, we've made a simple keyframe animation. Now it's time to smooth it out and make it look better. Like almost everything in Dreams, keyframes can be tweaked. So open this one's tweak menu, hold L1, then press the square button over it. You'll see two sliders at the bottom, slow power up and slow power down. These determine how long it takes for the keyframe to turn on fully. Hover over the slow power up slider now and hold X. Then move your IMP to the right to increase the value. Let's set it to 1 second for now. You can set slow power down to any value you like. Then close the tweak menu by selecting the cross icon in the corner. Or you can hold L1 over the menu, then press the circle button. Let's see what that looks like in play mode. Ah yes, that looks a lot smoother. If you're happy with the new animation, switch back to edit mode. Rewind time with L3 and move on to the next step. It looks like the bridge across the next gap has collapsed. We could just move it back into place, but where's the fun in that?
Where indeed?
Let's perform a little bit of magic instead. Go to the Assembly menu and select another keyframe from the Animate menu. Stamp it above the gap with R2 or X. Now see if you can reassemble the bridge. Grab the first part and move it back where it should be. One of the great things about keyframes is that they can affect multiple objects. So you can put the other half of the bridge back too. Then select Stop Recording from the Context menu to store your changes. Once recording stops, the bridge will go back to its original position. So, select the keyframe with X if you want to see those changes again. I could have done a better job at positioning the bridge. Nothing to worry about though, because editing a keyframe is easy. Just select the Edit Keyframe button in the Context menu. It's got the same icon as a keyframe gadget. This allows you to make changes to the keyframe. You can remove things from a keyframe by pressing the triangle button over them. And now the bridges are back on the ground. Let's put them back into place, but this time, keyframe by pressing the triangle button over them. And now the bridges are back on the ground. Let's put them back into place, but this time, make sure they're a bit straighter.
Hey, mine were pretty straight, dude.
Remember, when you're grabbing things, you can realign them by pressing the triangle button. There we go. Much better. You can select Stop Recording again to finish editing this keyframe. Then move on to the next step when your bridge is in place. The bridge's new position is already stored in the keyframe, so all we need now is a way to activate it. That's where this trigger zone will come in handy. Let's select it to see what zone it covers. It's not in the gap this time. It's over this button. First, create a wire from the trigger zone's output using R2 or X. Then stretch it over to the keyframe and connect it to its power port. When Connie steps on the button now, the keyframe will be switched on. But
try
what
it in play
happens
mode.
when she leaves the trigger zone? Let's test it in play mode to find out.
It's gonna fall.
Just as I thought. When Connie moves away, the keyframe switches off. Let's head back to edit mode and see what we can do about that. Of course, we could just move the trigger zone into the gap, but this is an animation tutorial. So let's see if we can use the keyframe's tweak menu to fix the problem. Open it now with the L1 and square button shortcut and have a look at the options there. Hovering over the buttons will bring up their names. The one we're interested in is called Keep Changes. With this option turned on, any changes made by the animation will be permanent. The bridge will stay in its new position. Since we're already in the tweak menu, let's add some smoothing to that animation. It to 2 seconds tweak menu with L1 and the circles in play mode. You can switch back to edit mode, rewind. You could try keyframing a tweak menu setting, or animating some. Move on to the next step, and I'll show you how to use keyframes. Are great for making simple animations, but if you want to make something more complex, you need a timeline. See that little block floating between the last two platforms?
I do.
Let's use keyframes on a timeline to animate it. Start by selecting a timeline from the Animate menu. Stamp it down somewhere around the last gap. Then you can use the circle button to unequip the gadget. Now open the timeline, hold L1 over it, and press X. This is the timeline canvas. You can move the canvas with your imp by grabbing it with R2. The numbers along the top are seconds, and you can see it set to 8 seconds by default. If you grab the edges with X, you can extend or shorten the canvas. Try setting it to around 6 seconds. If you ever need extra space to add more things, you can also extend the bottom of the timeline. Once you're comfortable with moving and resizing the timeline canvas, move on to the next step and we'll start adding things to it. Now, it's time to animate the floating block. Get a new keyframe from the Animate menu and stamp it in the scene. Now grab and move the block to its starting position at the edge of the platform where Cuthbert's waiting. Once the block's in place, remember to press the Stop Recording button in the context menu. Now, grab the keyframe gadget and move it over the timeline. The gadget will snap to it. Place it at the very start of the timeline. Then get another keyframe from the Animate menu. We'll use this one to record the block's second position. This time...
Hold it. There we go. Why isn't it snapping in?
Use this one to record the block's second position. This time, place it at the... Now, grab the keyframe gadget and move it over the timeline. The gadget will snap to it.
Hey, mine didn't...
Place it at the very start of the timeline.
It's not snapping.
Then get another keyframe from the Animate menu. Place it... Now, grab the keyframe gadget
Did I stop
and move
recording?
it over the timeline.
No. Okay, that's why.
The gadget will snap to it. Place it at the very start of the timeline.
I didn't stop recording.
Then get another keyframe from the Animate menu. We'll use this one to record the block's second position. This time, stamp the keyframe directly onto the timeline. Around the 2-second mark is good.
No, I like
on the
3.
same row as the first keyframe. Move the floating block to the opposite side of the gap. Now stop recording. Hover over the timeline canvas and play controls will appear. Using these controls, you can preview just the timeline without playing the rest of the scene. Select the play button to preview your animation. As you can see, gadgets are only active when the timeline's playhead is over them. So, when neither of the keyframes are switched on, the block goes right back to its original position. Now we need to edit the animation so the first keyframe blends into the second. To do that, open the first keyframe's tweak menu with L1 and the square button. Now that the keyframe is on a timeline, the buttons that were grayed out before are available. These are blend types, and they change how one keyframe merges into the next. Select the linear button, which will blend to the next keyframe at a constant speed. If you press the timeline's play button now, you'll see the platform moves smoothly between the keyframed positions. Feel free to try out other blend types and see how they affect the animation. Then move on to the next step when you're ready.
Should try some of these other ones. He's out. He's both. Okay, so that's starting slow, speeding up, and then slowing down again. I got you.
We've got the platform moving smoothly now, but we can still improve how it works.
We need to reverse it.
Let's begin by making it pause for a moment at the start and finish, so Connie has an easier time getting on. All we have to do is scale the keyframes on the timeline, so they last longer. You might want to get up close to the first keyframe before we start. Now, with your imp over the keyframe, hold the up directional button to extend it. Then do the same with the second keyframe. Now that the keyframes are longer, the blend has become quicker. You can see it for yourself by selecting the play button under the timeline. If you want to scale a keyframe more precisely, you can do that with its trim handles. Trim handles are the dotted lines at the beginning and end of keyframes. Grab them now with R2 to give it a try. We should get the platform back to where it started now, but instead of adding a new keyframe, we're going to clone the first one. You remember how to clone things, right?
Yep.
Just hold L1 and grab the first keyframe with R2. Now drag it past the second keyframe and place it by releasing R2. Now we just need to add the blending between the last two keyframes. Only this time we'll use a shortcut instead of the tweak menu. Just hover over the space between those keyframes, then hold L1 and press X. There you go, one linear blend added. You can There you go, one linear blend shortcut instead of the tweak menu. Just hover over the space between those keyframes, then hold L1 and press X. There you go, one linear blend added. You can even cycle through different blend types by keeping L1 held and pressing X again. I love shortcuts, because I'm lazy. Use the play controls on the timeline to preview the animation. Move on to the final step when you're ready to continue.
Wait, that's not right. That's not oh, there we go. Alright.
Now, because there's some space at the end of the timeline where none of the keyframes are active,
I'll close mine.
The platform just snaps right back to its original position. There's a few ways we could fix this. For example, we could shorten the timeline so there's no gap at the end.
That's what I did.
We could also lengthen the keyframe animation so it fills up the whole timeline. Or we could turn on Keep Changes in the last keyframe's tweak menu. The last step is tweaking the timeline itself. So, hold L1 anywhere over it, then press the square button to see all of its properties. The playback speed makes it go faster or slower. But what we're interested in right now is the playback mode.
Loop.
When it's set to once, the whole timeline will play, even if it was only powered for a split second. When it's set to sustain, it will only play when it has constant power. It will stop when it loses power, then resume from that point if it's turned on again. And if it's set to loop, it will repeat over and over as long as it has power. That sounds like the best option for this timeline, so select that one. Okay, it looks like we're good to go. You can close the timeline now by selecting the cross icon in the top right corner. Or you can hold L1 over the timeline itself, then press the circle button. Click L3 to rewind time and test out your changes in play mode. Once you're happy with everything, exit through the door to complete this tutorial.
Hi Cuthbert, you big donkey. Audio or art. I've done the art ones already, so let's do some audio. We'll do the art afterwards and then I'll probably finish.
When things don't sound the way they should, it can ruin the experience of
Don't cry, Cuthbert.
Don't worry, Cuthbert.
God
The
damn it,
Dreamiverse
Cuthbert.
contains heaps of ready-made sounds for us to use. First, let's switch over to play mode and see how it all sounds at the moment.
Quiet, I want to hear some crackling fire.
Quiet, isn't it? Doesn't feel quite right. In fact, it's creeping me out, so let's head back into edit mode. Switch over to sound mode so we can start adding some sounds. Find the modes menu. It's inside the assembly menu. As you can see, there are lots of different modes. Each has its own set of tools for doing different things. We're currently in assembly mode. If you select the speaker symbol icon with X, we'll switch to sound mode. That's better. In the next step, we'll start adding sounds to the scene. Okay, the first thing we need to do is to start adding some background sounds. See the button with the magnifying glass in the sound menu? That's the search menu. Select it now to view the different types of sounds you can add. Now select the speaker button to search for sound effects. This is the Dreamiverse, where you can find all the wonderful stuff other dreamers have made. I've already set aside a collection of sound effects for you here. That's what this collection is. It's bursting with different sound effects for you to play with. Select it with X to open. I've arranged the sound effects into groups for you. To get a proper overview, use the right stick to zoom in and out of the collection. This group of sound effects are background sounds. You can hear a preview of each sound by hovering over them with your imp. Find something that fits the dreamy atmosphere of the scene. I rather like dream space. When you've found a sound you like, select it with X. The sound you selected now appears as a gadget on your imp. You can stamp it into your scene with R2, any place you like. It doesn't matter where you put it because background sounds can be heard everywhere in a scene. Now let's start time with R3 and see how it all sounds. Ah, that's better. Notice how much more alive the scene feels with just that one sound. Imagine how it will feel with even more sound effects. But there's no need to imagine it. You can start adding more now to create a layered and unique ambience. If you want to replace a sound effect, just stamp a different one over it. When you've got things sounding just how you want them, rewind time with L3 and move on to the next step. Background sounds really help to create an immersive atmosphere. But to add sound to a specific object in the scene, you need to use what we call a spot sound. Let's try it out on the fire between the platforms. I'm sure we can find some fire sound effects in the collection. Let's take a look. Select Search Sound Effects from the Sound menu. As we open the tutorial collection in the last step, it's still open when we come back to the Dreamiverse. Isn't that handy?
Yes, sirree. Everything's handy about Dreams.
Some fire sound effects. Have a listen to some of the fire sounds and pick one you like. Once you've selected it, your imp will be equipped with a spot sound effect. See those rings coming off the gadget? That's the sound's fade zone. The rings show you how the sound fades away as you move further from the source. Let's stamp that sound between the first two platforms. Put it above the fire and see what that sounds like. If you want to see the sound's fade zone, select the gadget with X. Click R3 to listen to the sound effect. You'll notice the sound gets louder the closer you get to it. Aha! You can almost feel that fire. Toasty. As you move away, out of the fade zone, it gets quieter, until eventually you can't hear it at all. You can press the circle button now to deselect the sound effect. Then click L3 to rewind the scene. If you're happy with your spot sound, move on to the next step.
One more. On the embers as well. The embers.
Things haven't been that tricky for Connie so far, but the next gap looks a bit too big, even with her mighty jumping skills. Let's fly over to that floating platform using the left and right sticks and get a closer look at it. Looks like there's a trigger zone attached to it. Why don't we switch over to play mode and see what it does? Well, will you look at that? It lights up the platform when Connie steps on it. Lovely. You know what would make it even better though? If it made a sound as well. So let's switch back to edit mode and make that happen. I've got a feeling you...
These aren't loud enough. Wait, can I move? Ah, there we go.
Can find something in the tutorial collection to use here. Go to the assembly menu and go back into sound mode. Now go to search and select search sound effects. Over here are some energy sound effects. Have a listen to a few. Pick a sound effect for your light up platform. I quite like the sound of Dream Terminal.
Yeah, I like battery active.
See which one you like and select it with X. Now it's time to stamp it in the scene somewhere near the platform.
On the platform?
In the next step, I'll show you how to trigger the sound effect. As we've already seen, background and spot sounds will play constantly when placed in the scene like this. But for the platform, we want the sound to be triggered by Connie. And for that to happen, we need to connect the sound effect to the same trigger zone that activates the glow. Move in closer to the platform using the left and right sticks. Take a good look at the trigger zone gadget. Do you see the output port that says detected when you hover over it?
Yep.
That means it will trigger when it detects a possessed puppet like Connie. So all we need to do to make the sound effect activate when Connie's on the platform is connect the output to the sound effect. Let's do that now. When you select the detected port with R2 or X, you'll see your imp becomes tethered to the port by a wire. Gadgets communicate with each other using wires like this. You'll also notice that a power port has appeared on the bottom of the sound effect gadget. To connect the two gadgets, just hover over that power port and press R2 or X. Time to head into play mode to see how it sounds. When you're ready, switch back to edit mode and start the next step. Oh, I just realized something. We got so caught up with these sound effects, we forgot to add another platform for Connie. She must be getting impatient. Sort that out for her. The easiest thing to do would be to clone the platform. Remember how to do that? Just hover over it, hold L1, and press and hold R2. Once the clone has been created, let go of L1, move it to the right spot, then release R2 to place it down. When you clone an object, any gadgets attached to it will come along for the ride. So all you need to do now is to wire the trigger zone on the second platform to the sound effect. Or even better, grab a new sound effect from the collection, just for variety. It's up to you. Dream Shapers should always go with their instincts. Whatever you choose to do, move on to the next step when you're ready. Alright, there's just one more gap for Connie to cross before she reaches the door. That pink cylinder would make a great stepping stone for her, but it's all the way down in the water. If you take a closer look at it, you'll see there's a trigger zone and a movement sensor on it. They're not connected to anything right now. There's also a keyframe on the platform. I wonder what that does. Try selecting it with X to find out.
Boop. Boop.
Just as I thought. It raises the cylinder, so Connie can use it to cross over. Press the circle button to deselect the keyframe. Looks like all we need to do is connect the cylinder's trigger zone to the keyframe, so it moves up when she gets close. And while we're doing that, why not add a sound effect to it as well? Let's jump back into the sound effects collection and see if there's anything appropriate in there. Down here we've got some mechanical sound effect loops. These are the perfect sound effects for any sort of machinery in a scene. We want something that would go well with a raising platform. I think I'll go for the heavy metal ratchet loop. That sounds good, right? Okay, now select the sound effect of your choice and stamp it near the pink cylinder with R2 or X. In the next step, I'll show you how to connect all of the gadgets. Now we just need to do a little bit of wiring to get everything working. Remember, the trigger zone will activate when it detects Connie, triggering the keyframe to raise the platform. Grab the detected output from the trigger zone with R2 or X. Then stretch the wire to the keyframe gadget and connect it to its power port with R2 or X. Now let's get the sound effect working. This will be triggered by the movement sensor. The movement sensor detects when the object it's attached to is moving. So when the platform starts rising, the movement sensor will send a signal from its output port. That's the output port on the right side of the movement sensor gadget. It's called velocity overall. Press R2 or X over the port to create a wire. You'll need to connect the other end of the wire to the sound effects power port. Once that's done, switch over to play mode to test everything out. So much better. That sound effect really makes a big difference. There's even more you can do to bring this scene to life. See if you can add some sound to the water between the platforms. I think there might be some water sounds in the tutorial collection. Experiment with the different effects as much as you like and see what you can come up with. When you're done, just take Connie through the door in play mode to finish this tutorial.
Cuthbert!
This tutorial is all about making music. Music can make your creations come alive, adding emotion and atmosphere. In Dreams, you can compose whole tracks from scratch and even make your own instruments. But you don't need to be a maestro to start making your own music. I'll show you how to create an arrangement using ready-made music clips. So let's begin. To start making music, we need to switch over to sound mode. Right now, you're in assembly mode. If you're ever unsure of what mode you're in, just hover over the icon in the top left corner to see your current mode and tool. Go to the assembly menu and open the modes menu with X. The modes menu is where you access all the different creation modes. Each mode has its own set of tools and options. The button for sound mode has a speaker symbol on it. Select it with X. Now you have a new menu at the top of the screen. This is the sound menu. It contains everything you need to make your own music. In the scene, you'll see a timeline gadget. In the next step, I'll show you how to edit it. Music in Dreams is arranged in timelines. This timeline contains a version of the music you heard at the start of this tutorial. To see what's inside it, we need to open its canvas. Hover your imp over the timeline, hold L1 and press X to open it. It's just like scoping into a group. This is the timeline canvas. The canvas exists within scene space, so if you pull down on the left stick, you'll back away from it. Hold the L1 button and use the left stick to move up and down the timeline. This is the best way to navigate around timelines, especially when they're big. This piece of music is called Connie's theme. To listen to it, just start time by clicking R3. See how the piece is composed of many music clips. The clips power on and off as the playhead passes over them. Click R3 again to pause time. Each music clip is a collection of notes made by an instrument. You can grab them and move them around with your imp. If you want to delete a music clip, hover over it and press the triangle button. Clips can also be cloned by holding L1 when you grab them. You can extend the timeline by hovering over one of its edges and holding X. The edge glows and an arrow icon appears. You can also extend the bottom if you need space for more clips. Once you've finished listening to the piece, click L3 to rewind time. You can find all sorts of different music by searching the Dreamiverse. To add music to one of your scenes, you could simply stamp a ready-made timeline, like this one. But in this tutorial, you'll learn how to assemble your own track from ready-made music clips. Move on to the next step and we'll get started. So, let's start making music. It's actually a lot easier than you might think. Close the timeline by selecting the cross button in the top right corner. Or hover over it, hold L1 and press circle to close it. Now delete the timeline by hovering over it with your imp and pressing triangle. Let's add a new music timeline to the scene. Press square to open the sound menu. Select the music timeline button in the menu, then stamp one in the scene with R2 or X. Press circle to unequip the timeline gadget from your imp. Open up the timeline canvas with L1 and X. This timeline is empty, ready to be filled with music. The columns on the timeline represent musical bars. This timeline is 8 bars long. We'll need more space than that, so hover over the right edge and grab it with X. Extend the timeline to 16 bars. Now let's add a music clip to the timeline. Press square to open the sound menu. Find the search button and select it with X. Its icon is the magnifying glass. When you search in sound mode, there are 4 options for finding different sounds. Select Search Music Clips with X. This is the Dreamiverse. Here you can find music made by other dream shapers. Well, usually you can, but for this tutorial, I've made a collection of elements for you to use. That's what this cluster is. Select it with X to open it. It contains a selection of music clips which you can use to build your own arrangements. Use the right stick to zoom in and out and the left stick to move around. I've grouped the clips into different categories.
So many tutorials, LOL.
Basic melody. That's this group of clips.
Red Hot Chili Peppers.
Hover over the clips to hear a preview of how they sound.
Yeah, there's quite a lot, but you know.
Then select it with X to equip it to your imp.
It is for every
I'm using the clip Nostalgia Bells.
It is for every aspect of the game.
Your imp will now be holding a gadget.
Who is that? Who's talking to me? Vegeta. Yeah, Vegeta. I mean, a lot of people have said they've completely ignored them, but if you want to learn everything, then they're all there, nice and easy for you.
Containing your selected clip. If you hover over the timeline, the gadget should snap to the canvas and reveal the whole clip. Place the clip at the start of the timeline.
Does teach in sections or all together?
Yeah, in sections. You can choose what you want to learn about.
The timeline will snap to the bars and to other clips. This will help you line them up. Click R3 to listen to the timeline. In the next step, we'll build up the track with some more clips. Click L3 to rewind time. Let's build on
Pretty
the melody
cool.
by adding some chords. Go to the sound menu and select Search Music Clips again. Over here are some chord clips.
What the hell am I watching?
To preview them, then select one with X. I'm going with Suspended Pad, but you can make your own choice. Stamp your clip onto a new row of the timeline and snap it to the start. Click R3 to listen and notice how the clips play together in time. Click L3 to rewind. Now let's add some drums. Go back to the sound menu and select Search Music Clips. Find the drum clips in the collection. A drum beat can really change the feel of a track. I love these samba practice drums. Pick a drum clip you like, then stamp it onto the timeline under the melody and chords. Now click R3 to listen to how it sounds. All the clips in the collection are in the same time and key, so you can mix and match them easily.
This is strange.
Click L3 to rewind.
Not really. Is that still you, Vegeta? Me and Cole. Cole, it's the Dreams Early Access, mate. This is just the create your own music track part of it.
In the next step, I'll show you how to edit the length of your clips and how to add fades. When you hover over a clip on the timeline, you'll see dotted lines light up at the start and at the end of the clip. Move closer to the timeline so you can see them properly. These are trim handles. We can use them to change the length of a clip. Hover over the handle on the end of the drum clip, then hold R2 to grab it. These clips are loops, so you can extend the clip beyond its original length. All the clips in the collection can be extended in this way.
You need to play pub before I mug you.
Really useful for arranging and remixing.
So we have a game in a bit. I'm getting off this soon. I'm gonna get some food and stuff, so if you want to play a game tonight.
On top of the trim handle, you'll see a little coloured gizmo. Move in closer to see it properly. This is a fade handle. You can use it to fade the volume of a clip in or out. It works just like the trim handle.
Up to you, I was joking.
R2 and move your imp left or right to create a fade.
Wait, how did you do that?
Grab the gizmo with R2 and fade handle. You can use it to fade the volume of a clip in or out. It works just like the trim handle. Grab the gizmo with R2 and move your imp left or right to create a fade.
Nice. Really easy.
Try adding a fade out on the chord clip so it drops off gradually. Drag it out further for a longer fade. Now click R3 to run time. Doesn't that sound cool? You may have noticed that the music stops as soon as the playhead reaches the end of the timeline.
The hell, my music broke.
In the next step, I'll show you how to make your timeline loop.
What?
Now
you
click
broke
L3 to rewind.
Wait, you broke my music broke. Oh, there we go. What about, I want to fade that back up again.
Oh shit, this bumping.
Oh shit, this bumping.
This go hard. Not bad. Romanu need to spit some bars with the beat.
Dream on, buddy. Dream on.
Oh shit. That went hard.
To make the track play constantly in the scene, we need to set the timeline to loop. We can do this in the timeline's tweak menu.
I don't really want it to loop, it'll sound a bit silly.
Hover over a blank area of the timeline, hold L1 and press square to open its tweak menu. In here we can change the timeline settings. Find the playback mode section. There are 3 options. Once means the timeline will play once all the way through when it's powered on. Sustain means the timeline will pause when it's powered off, then resume once it's powered on. Loop means the timeline will play repeatedly while it's powered on. Hover over the loop icon and press X to change the playback mode. You can also change the playback speed in the tweak menu. Hover over the playback speed slider and hold X to grab it. Now move your imp to the left or right to adjust the value. Click R3 to hear your adjustments live. You can also adjust the slider by hovering over it and pressing the up or down directional buttons. See how it sounds when it's slowed down or sped up a little. To close the tweak menu, hover over it, hold L1 and press circle. You can also tweak music clips to make them loop. Just hover over them, hold L1 and press square to open their tweak menus. You can also change their volume and tempo. Be careful changing the tempo, as your clips could go out of time with the others. We've made a cool piece of music, but you can carry on adding more clips if you want to. Maybe you heard something in a tutorial collection that would sound awesome in your arrangement. Try trimming and looping tracks. See what you can come up with. If you need extra space, you can extend the timeline by grabbing the edges with X. All the clips we've used in this tutorial come from the Media Molecule Music Collection. The collection contains lots of music clips you can use, as well as some complete tracks. Look for it in the Dreamiverse next time you're making music in sound mode. Once you've finished, switch over to play mode and listen to your track in the scene. To end the tutorial, just press Options and select the Exit Creation button.
What did it tell me to press? Exit creation. Where's that?
you've finished, switch over to play mode and listen to your track in the scene. To end the tutorial, just press Options and...
Okay! I might just quickly do the art one.
This goes hard.
Let's quickly do the art one, and then I'm going to shoot off, get some food. Let me just see what time it is actually. 9:25. You know what? I'm going to shoot off now. I'll do the art ones tomorrow. These are pretty cool though. I've already done those ones. Okay, Cole. I'm going to go get some food and a drink, and then I'll be ready for a couple of rounds if you want. Maybe give me half an hour or so, 40 minutes or something. What are these up here? Hey, somebody gave me a thumbs up. Little Rampage. What are you saying, Little Rampage? What have you created? Let's see your creations. Music. Let's listen to your music.
Yay, I can get Cameron.
Yeah, go for it, man. You're gonna need all the help you can get with me on the team.
Oh yeah.
Give him a thumbs up. Little Rampage 9. What else has he created? Another music track and Slender Man.
When the full game drop?
I'm not really sure. But it's going to be a steeper price. They've not given a proper date out yet, but I know it's cheaper. It's cheaper at the moment. Why is this guy following me? I don't know, but I better follow him in return, I guess, because I'm nice like that. Follow, thumbs up. Hypertronic shared yesterday with me. Did he now? One, two, three, four.
This gives me a Life is Strange vibe.
This music, I can't remember Life is Strange. I remember enjoying it, but I didn't complete it. It's a nicely put together track. It's going to change up again here. Thumbs up for you, sir. I wish they'd let us remix these musics though. They don't seem to want to. Oh, there we go. We can. So we can see the girl. We can see the. You can see the board for it. If we open it up, there's a big one. Yeah, this is where I'll probably spend most of my time in Dreams, making music and pictures rather than games. People giving me thumbs up, man. I don't know what for. Apple Squid. I think Apple Squid made something really cool, if I remember. I think is he the fight guy? He's made a lot of things already. American Pig Wolf. I think he's the guy who makes the fight scenes. He's made a lot of scenes. Yeah, there it is. Choreography study. Right, I'm gonna shoot off, Cole. Get some food, get a cup of tea. And then I'll see you on PUBG in a bit.
Main menu. Okay.
I'm gonna change my imp.
The stream is over.
Yes, the stream is over. Vegeta. I'm leaving now, buddy. I'm gonna play. I'm gonna go get some dinner and food and drink, and then I'm gonna play PUBG with my mate Cole. Me, I never miss. So you guys have a nice evening. I'll see you in a bit, Cole, with Cameron. I might stream, I don't know, probably not. See how we go.
Okay.
Right, about half an hour or something, Cole. Speak to you later, matey.